There's a name behind one of the most iconic logos in human history. A name that doesn't always make headlines, that doesn't crave attention, but represents something far greater than fame. It represents determination, obsession, reinvention, relentless will. That name is Phil Knight. This is not just the story of a man. It's the story of a movement, a shift, a quiet revolution that began not with fanfare or fortune, but with a dream in the heart of a young man from Oregon. A man who believed that greatness wasn't inherited. It wasn't bought. It was earned through effort, through discipline, through risk, through pain. He wasn't a loud man. He wasn't the kind who'd walk into a room and command it with charisma. He didn't shout his ideas from rooftops. But inside, there was a fire, a vision, a need to build something that didn't yet exist. A hunger to prove not just to the world, but to himself that one person with purpose could shape the future. Phil Knight was born in Portland in 1938 in an America still recovering from the Great Depression, where every penny was sacred and every opportunity had to be clawed for. His father, a strict newspaper publisher, believed in hard work, in stoicism, in doing things the right way and offering no shortcuts. He wasn't the type to say, "I'm proud of you," or "go chase your dreams." He was the type to say, "earn it." So that's what Phil did. He ran, literally and figuratively. He ran away from the noise, from the pressure, from the expectations. But more importantly, he ran towards something. He didn't know what it was yet, only that it was out there. As a boy, he'd wake up before the sun, lace up his worn-out shoes, and hit the pavement. Not because he had to, but because something inside him felt more alive in motion, more whole. Running gave him clarity. It wasn't just a sport. It was therapy. It was the language his soul spoke when the world made no sense. He was an introvert in a loud world. While others chased popularity, Phil chased purpose. Quietly, focusedly. And then, in college, something shifted. He joined the University of Oregon track team, a powerhouse team led by one of the most eccentric and brilliant minds in athletics, Bill Bowerman. Bowerman didn't see shoes as just gear. He saw them as weapons, as tools for excellence. He obsessed over every gram, every seam, every curve of rubber and cloth. He'd melt rubber and waffle irons to prototype new soles. He didn't believe in limits, only better. Phil watched, absorbed, learned. He saw in Bowerman a reflection of something he'd felt his whole life, that even the smallest edge could lead to greatness. That details mattered. That passion wasn't loud, it was deliberate. After Oregon, Phil took another step forward. He enrolled in Stanford's MBA program, searching not just for a degree, but for direction. And then came that one assignment, one paper, one question that would ignite his future. Can Japanese running shoes compete with German brands like Adidas and Puma? Most saw it as just an academic exercise. Phil saw a spark, a door, a possibility. His answer? Not only could they compete, they could dominate. Because he knew something the world hadn't fully realized yet, that greatness didn't belong to Europe, or to legacy. It belonged to innovation, to courage, to anyone bold enough to challenge the giants. So he boarded a flight to Japan in 1962. A young man with no company, no team, no real plan, just belief. He walked into the offices of Onitsuka Tiger with a borrowed suit and a borrowed confidence, and pitched himself as the exclusive US distributor. They didn't know he was just one guy with no warehouse, no funding, and no customers. But somehow, they said yes. He returned to America with a suitcase full of shoes, not knowing he was carrying the foundation of an empire. He started selling from the trunk of his car, beat-up Plymouth Valiant. The roads were long. The margins were thin, the rejection was daily, but every pair he sold meant one thing: progress. He named his company Blue Ribbon Sports. It didn't sound glamorous, and it wasn't. Phil still worked full-time as an accountant. During lunch breaks, he took orders. After work, he packed boxes. On weekends, he drove from meet to meet, shaking hands, winning trust, one runner at a time. And then, something extraordinary happened. Bowerman joined as a partner, the obsessive coach. the quiet runner. Together, they weren't just selling shoes, they were reimagining them, tweaking soles, adjusting support, listening to the needs of athletes before athletes knew how to speak them. But success doesn't like comfort. By 1971, their partnership with Onitsuka Tiger was crumbling. Legal battles, broken trust, the pipeline was collapsing. Phil had a choice: fade away quietly or risk everything. He chose to leap. They needed a name, a logo, a rebirth. Jeff Johnson, one of their earliest employees, woke up from a dream and offered a single word: Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. A design student named Carolyn Davidson was paid $35 to sketch a logo. She drew a swoosh emotion, a symbol of speed, of flight, of ambition. Phil wasn't sure about it at first, but sometimes destiny doesn't wait for your approval. Nike was born. The early days were brutal. Lawsuits, loan rejections, sleepless nights. There were moments Phil feared it was over, that he'd bet everything on a fantasy. But every time doubt crept in, he remembered why he started. Not for profit, but for passion. Nike didn't market like other companies. It didn't sell dreams of wealth or status. It sold effort, sweat, sacrifice. It made heroes out of athletes and athletes out of believers. They didn't chase celebrities, they chased authenticity. They listened to runners, to ballers, to weekend warriors and rising stars. And with every product, they asked, will this make them better? By the late 70s, Nike had caught fire. In 1980, the company went public. Phil Knight, the man who once peddled shoes out of his trunk, became a multimillionaire overnight. But if you looked at him, he hadn't changed. He still wore simple clothes, still kept to himself, still arrived early and stayed late. Because for him, money wasn't the goal, impact was. And then came 1988, the moment that turned Nike from a brand into a religion. Just do it. 3 words. Infinite power. It wasn't just a slogan. It was a mantra, a challenge, a permission slip for the world to try, to fail, to rise, to fight, to become more than what they were yesterday. And the athletes followed, not because they were paid, but because they felt understood. Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Cristiano Ronaldo, Naomi Osaka. The list went on, not just of talent, but of mindset, of grit, of people who didn't wait for permission to be great. Behind them all, behind the lights and the cheers, was Phil Knight, still silent, still steady, still watching. But no great journey is free from shadows. Nike came under fire for its overseas factories, for labor practices that drew global outrage. Phil didn't hide. He didn't make excuses. He listened. And then, he changed. Nike overhauled its supply chain, opened itself to audits, set new industry standards. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And it came not from pressure but from purpose. Because real leaders don't run from criticism, they grow from it. Eventually, Phil stepped down as CEO. He handed over the reins but not the mission. Because what he built was never just his. It belonged to anyone who laced up a pair of sneakers and chose to rise. He wrote a book, Shoe Dog. But it wasn't just about shoes. It was about spirit, about failure, about the nights of doubt and the days of risk, about betting on yourself when no one else will. Today, Lee is worth over $150 billion. But numbers don't tell the story. The real legacy of Phil Knight is in the kids who run faster because they believe they can. The dreamers who try harder because they heard, just do it, and thought, maybe I can. So if you've got an idea no one believes in, if you've been told you're too quiet, too small, too inexperienced, if you've failed more times than you can count, let that be your power. Because Phil Knight was just a shy runner once, with a crazy idea, with no money, with nothing but belief. And he changed the world, not by waiting, but by doing. So take your shot. Take the first step. Not next year, not next week. Today. Just do it.